One of the more remarkable treats at First Presbyterian Church of LaGrange are the carvings on the liturgical furniture that strike our eyes each and every Sunday. Particular carvings were actually commissioned for our sanctuary, and they were not just some accident of liturgical art, but they were intent of the artist Ernst Schwidder to be able to convey to us a combination of beauty and reverence in our sanctuary as we worship together. The carvings, all wrought in solid mahogany, were commissioned by a conversation between Ernst Schwidder, the carver, and the architect, Charles Stad. Perhaps most interesting is only a single word appears in any of these carvings, and that is the one that is found in the front of our baptismal font.
At this point, we will attempt to undertake the relationship between this liturgical artist, Ernst Schwidder, and the carvings that reveal the word Nike, connected to the missal system, which was a Cold War answer to a Cold War problem. Was Schwidder involved in Cold Warriorship in the expression of the word Nike on our baptismal font? Project Nike began in 1944 when the War Department demanded a new air defense system to combat new jet aircraft. Existing gun-based systems proved largely unable to deal with the speeds and altitudes which jet aircraft operated. Two proposals were accepted. Bell Laboratories offered Project Nike. A much longer-range collision course system was developed by General Electric, named Project Thumper. But given the name after a bunny from a cartoon, General Electric's project was immediately scuttled in favor of the Bell Laboratories.
We interrupt this regularly scheduled report of Pastor Jonathan's Look What I Found in order to bring you this breaking news. Extremely important story seems to be unfolding just outside of this building, and we're going to take you to our correspondents right now. Sorry for the interruption. This is FPCLG News. It's almost impossible to see it now, but just a few hours ago, the pandemonium on this street was absolutely unbelievable. It seems there was an impromptu parade as someone named Jesus from Nazareth came from the east gate and paraded right down through the center of the street. Somebody had found him a donkey to sit on, and as people spontaneously gathered around him, they took and put their coats on the donkey and strew palms all around, and in doing so, they began to holler, Hosanna, praises, save us. Blessed is he who comes in the name of Yahweh. As you know, this is the height of the Passover season here in Jerusalem, and things are a little tense. It didn't take long for the Roman soldiers to begin to encircle the parade route as they came right up here to the portico, to the gate of the temple court. And it wasn't the parade itself that set people at edge. It turned out what happened next that called for a crackdown from Roman authorities and the recommendation that people all just stay inside for the next few days of the Passover season. The portico gates are locked now. We're not allowed inside. But after that parade had come down the center of the street, Jesus, who was from Nazareth, he's a Galilean, along with some of his followers, came marching right in to the temple courtyard. Now, in the temple courtyard, there's a lot of merchants, a lot of people who set up their wares there for sale, souvenirs for the Passover season, but mostly changing Roman script into temple script, meaning the money transaction, because it's not legal inside the temple to spend any of the Roman currency. The Roman currency has pictures of the emperor on it, and that's graven images, which is abhorrent to the Jews. And so they had their table set up for the money exchange, and this Jesus guy burst through the doors into the temple courtyard and began to kick over the tables, knocking the money and scattering the livestock around as people were brokering the purchase of livestock, of doves and sheep for sacrifice for the annual Passover festival. And in doing so, he then grabbed a rope, it was a curtain cord, and began to whip the merchants and the vendors there in the courtyard. And it was that brought down the power of the Roman authorities. It did not take long. Office of Pilate, the procurator, received word that there was some disturbance at the temple. He sent some guards here and sealed down the place, as we can see now. It's mostly put back together, but it is extremely troubling to figure out what's going to happen next. Most of the followers of Jesus turned out to be area homeless, destitute from the area from Bethphage, which is over to the east of here. He came down from the Mount of Olives, and this group of followers just were in this amazing frenzy, as many of them have said that this may be the long-promised Messiah. We reached out to Pilate and to the procurator's office for a comment. Unfortunately, at this point, they had no statement to be able to make, but we will continue to keep you apprised as to how things are going. Back to you. It's difficult to be able to see what's going on in the conference room behind me, but the Sanhedrin has called an emergency meeting associated with Jesus is overturning the tables in the temple courtyard earlier. There are a number of representatives to the Sanhedrin that believe that the man should be just put out of town. They've reached out to Pilate to see if he could be of assistance. But there's also another of individuals that are very concerned that if anything bad were to happen to Jesus, the people would turn against the Sanhedrin and the temple leaders, resulting in a riot or maybe worse. And so we're waiting to hear what happens. We're waiting to hear from our correspondents over at the proconsul's office of Pilate. We have not heard a thing from Herod yet, but this being Passover and Herod declaring himself as king, he is probably busy with Passover preparations in the palace at this time. So that's the information we have so far. We will keep you updated and posted. Thank you. We in the air? Oh, okay. We just received word that this upper room has been booked by one of Jesus's disciples who have stopped by with the woman who runs the establishment and asked if Jesus and the disciples could have Passover dinner here. And so we're extremely excited because our being here and this being when it is in Passover week, we might have an opportunity to be able to at least interview one of the disciples or find out what this Jesus intends in the days ahead. So in any case, here we are in the upper room where Jesus and his disciples are scheduled to celebrate Passover Seder. I'm now in the Garden of Gethsemane, which is a contemplative place. It's believed that Jesus and his followers often gather here in the evening for prayer. He's staying at a place not far from the Mount of Olives, which is just a few blocks from here. And we learned that he comes here with his disciples fairly regularly for some teaching and some contemplative space. We're not sure if we're going to have an opportunity to meet him. Hopefully we'd like to reach out for an interview. But I just wanted you to see the place where he comes and he prays. This is the first part of the week, and it's unclear how the week is going to unfold. We've received word that the Sanhedrin has actually had a meeting to determine their next steps in relationship to this upcountry Messiah from Galilee, Jesus of Nazareth.
Jesus, magnificent Messiah or meddling menace? Who is this prophet to the poor, and what is his agenda now that he and his band of country followers have arrived in Jerusalem? And what do we know about this suddenly popular YouTube icon? Born 30 years ago at Bethlehem of Judea, his mother, a distant cousin of Zechariah, a member of the priestly division of Abijah, his father, Joseph, an itinerant carpenter and fix-it man, claiming lineage to the Benjamites and venerated King David. After the Herodian assault on Bethlehem, his family fled as refugees to Egypt, where he spent the early years of his childhood. What strange practices and customs did his family learn from the Egyptians? Any thoughts at this point are just speculation. As a child, his family returned to Nazareth near his father's childhood home. Many have tied both his Bethlehem birth and his Nazarene upbringing to prophecies related to the long-promised Messiah. We know little of his youth, although there are those at Temple University who remember his visit when he was 12. They recall him as a legal savant with a brilliant mind for interpretation of religious scholarship. We also know that 3 years ago, Jesus arrived at the Jordan River to be baptized by John the Baptizer, who was a member of a small group of ascetics that lived out in the wilderness and taught apocalyptic message, suggesting that the end of the world was coming as we know it. John, you may recall, was recently arrested and beheaded by Herod during his birthday party. We're still investigating the relationship between John's execution and Herod's marriage to his own sister-in-law after Herod had his brother executed. We've reached out again to Herod's publicist, but we've received no confirmation or contact about any of that story at this time. Pulling together some students and followers, Jesus has spent a great deal of time in the countryside where he has been seen cavorting with women, tax collectors, drunkards, lepers, Samaritans. Certainly his reputation for hanging with ne'er-do-wells has tarnished a reputation with the Jerusalem elite. Nicodemus, a reputable member of the Pharisees, seems to have spent some time defending Jesus as a scholar and a possible man of God, but he's distanced himself more recently from that editorial position over the past few days. Rumors of free congregant meals for thousands, faith healings, and resurrections surround the reputation of this man Jesus. These are the kinds of activities that disrupt the power structures and class divisions in the smooth operations of our fair city of Jerusalem. The question as to whether he is a populist provocateur or a polished politician seems to be on everyone's lips this Passover week. It is the opinion of this commentator that not too many more days our trusted leadership here in Jerusalem, together with our Roman protectors, will make quick work of this man's reputation. One way or another, this demagogue du jour will fade into obscurity, and the question, who is this man Jesus, will be long forgotten. Thank you for watching. This is J. Bradley Krogh of PCLG News. Good day.